All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's 7 p.m., so we will begin our meeting. We're on the air. Okay, welcome to the meeting of the Harwich Zoning Board of Appeals on this January 26th, 2022. The purpose of this meeting is to hear and decide applications before the Board of Appeals which have been brought pursuant to the bylaw of the Town of Harwich and the Massachusetts Zoning Enabling Act. We are being taped, and this will be put up on YouTube in a day or so. I'll ask our board members to introduce themselves, please.
Joe Beasley.
David Nunley.
Brian Sullivan.
Chris Murphy. Dave Ryer.
Al Donahue.
Tim Bailey.
James Armstrong.
And Sheila Delaney, Secretary.
Okay. You applicants, when your case is called, if you could come up to the table here, and we're all masked, so if you could speak loudly. I can't hear even without the mask, so lots of volume for me, please. Thank you. Mr. Clerk, if you could call our first case, please.
All right, case number 2022-00. This is Joseph T. Burrell, trustee for the parent, A. Burrell, trustee of the 38 Pleasant Road Realty Trust. Through their agent, attorney Andrew Singer, they applied for special permit. The property is located at 38 Pleasant Road, and this is a request for continuance.
Yes, Attorney Singer has written us a letter dated January 11th, 2022, requesting a hearing, a continuance to our March 22 hearing. The owners are in the process of amending their plans and are going to submit revised plans in due course before our hearing. I'll move that we continue case 2022-00 to our March meeting as the first case on our agenda. Can I have a second, please?
Second.
Second from Mr. Armstrong. Any discussion by the board? We'll have just our 5 regular members vote on this. All in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Okay, that case is continued, Attorney Singer, until March. And we'll get you in first. Okay, if you could call our next case, please,
Case
Al.
number 2022-01. Coachman Harwich Property Owner LLC, through their agent, attorney Andrew Singer, has applied for a special permit and a variance for a change of use and convert the existing building into seasonal employee housing with a manager's apartment and dining facility. The application is pursuant to Code of the Town of Harwich 32551 and 32554 set forth in MGL 48, Section 6 and Section 10. The property is located at 774 Route 28, map 24, parcel T1, in the CH1 and RR zoning districts.
Okay, Attorney Singer, we're going to have voting on this case, our 5 regular members. We'll have Mr. Sullivan, Mr. Murphy, me, Mr. Donahue, and Mr. Armstrong as the voting members. So if you could introduce yourself for the record, please, and then present your petition.
Thank you. Yes, good evening. For the record, Andrew Singer, attorney from Dennisport, here on behalf of the applicant. With me at the table is Brian Weiner from Coastal Engineering, who is the project engineer. We have submitted a site plan to you. This is a project that actually doesn't do anything to the buildings. It's almost all use plus some site work in the interior part of the parking lot. So this is the former Coachman Motel on Route 28. It is currently improved with 26 motel rooms, 1 year-round manager's apartment, and a common dining facility. The common dining facility was actually permitted by this board, not you all, but 30 years ago, to serve 3 meals a day and be a restaurant. So it was, that was what has been on the site from a permitting point of view. The use is actually pre-existing non-conforming as a motel. It's not allowed in the CH1 or the residential zones. As you see on the plan, 95% of the property is in the commercial zone. There's a little triangle in the back that's residentially zoned. However, it has been here for many decades, as you know. What the new owner would like to do is to convert the use of the property, as said in the notice, to reuse 24 of the 26 rooms for seasonal employee housing for staff of the Witchmere Beach Club. They'd like to convert 2 of the rooms into office space for up to 5 staff members from Witchmere. They would continue the manager's apartment. The dining facility would be, and we've talked to the health department about this, it wouldn't be a restaurant, and it would just be like a common kitchen for the residents. So that would be a meeting space, it would be where they'd eat, it would be where they would, cook if they want to. And so the buildings themselves, other than some interior and cosmetic changes, aren't changing. The buildings are pre-existing non-conforming in some setbacks. There's a foot too close on the front here, and there's a half a foot too close on a side there. Some of the parking is pre-existing non-conforming as well. What they are, the site work, other than the use aspect, the site work that they're proposing is to remove the swimming pool that's in the center of the property. One of the septic systems on the site has failed, and so what they're proposing to do, as you can see on the plan, is to replace the septic system where the pool is now. We provided some additional landscape plan and other notes on the plan. We have been scheduled for site plan review with the planning board last evening. Unfortunately, as everyone knows, the meeting had to be postponed, so we'll be going in for the site plan review, but there's really nothing changing on the site per se. The parking's staying the same, the access staying the same, the drainage is staying the same. So I've spoken with the town planner a few times, and we will be going through the review, but there's not much going on here from a physical point of view. It really is the use question. And we're here, we've applied for 3 things with you tonight. One is a finding under MGL 48 Section 6, and then also a special permit, kind of the same thing, but state law just calls it a finding. That's because there are the pre-existing nonconformities on the site, and we are changing, as I said, the pool area and that center part. The big reason we're here, naturally and obviously, is the use. And that requires a variance for a very kind of unique reason. The dormitories, which is effectively what we're proposing for the, we spoke with the town, worked this out with the town planner and looking at the zoning of it. The manager's apartment, the office staff, the dining kitchen for the residents, those are all kind of accessory to this dormitory use. So that's the main question, is this dormitory use. Dormitories, as I'm sure you know, appear twice in the bylaw, but I really wish they appeared 3 times. The first place they appear is that they're defined. The zoning bylaw defines what a dormitory is, and with this, what we're proposing clearly falls within the definition. Secondly, the zoning bylaw prescribes a parking calculation for dormitories, and we meet that. In fact, parking's gonna be going down, as traffic's gonna be going down, as I'll discuss. The problem is the missing third. The use regulation table doesn't include dormitories. I don't know if it was an oversight. It's hard to explain how a use is defined and parked but not allowed. But be that as it may, that's the situation we face. So that is why we're here before you, asking for a variance to allow this use to be repurposed and redeveloped in the existing buildings on the property. Respectfully submit that, for the reasons I'm about to say, that the project does meet all of the various review criteria, both for special permit and a finding, and for a variance. The longstanding motel and its buildings, we submit, are more than adequate for continued transient residential use, which is what they've had, although this will be somewhat longer, because obviously employees would be in there presumably for the whole summer, whereas a motel, people were coming in and out much more often. We submit that the proposal will not create or intensify any significant or negative impacts on the neighborhood, nor cause harm to the public good. We think this is going to be a benefit. We all know the urgent need for places for businesses that house their employees in the summer. Witchmere has a lot of employees in the summer. It is something that they, like many others, always struggle with. This opportunity for this property came along and provides a very safe, appropriate, and close opportunity for 48 residents to have housing. There will be the manager's apartment, so there will be people on site, and the staff, having some staff on the site is also beneficial. Not only that they need some room for some staff, but also it has a ownership and management, not influence, but a presence on the property because they'll be there, certainly during working hours. As I mentioned, you have the site plan. There won't be any changes to the existing curb cuts, to the circulation through the property, nor to the parking. There will be probably a pretty significant decrease in traffic because a number of the residents not only won't have cars, but Witchmere will be running a shuttle van where employees will be brought, from the site to the resort for each day and then brought back at night. So actually parking's probably, there's more parking than will be utilized, but it's there today. Not proposing to change that. The buildings it's interesting when you look at the property, the buildings are built in a U around the outer perimeter of the property. So the buildings are the screening on this property. All the activity that is on the property is blocked by the buildings to the east, north, and south, and you have the road, east, north, and west, and you have the road to the south. So I don't believe there'll be any negative impact or visual or anything to abutting properties. The swimming pool, as I noted, will be removed, and from talking to various departments in the town, I think that's something that everyone's really happy about. It is a very old structure that's out there. There will be that's where the leach field for Title V compliant septic system will go. As you can see on the plan, this whole area, not only just where the pool is, but also the whole landscape area, which is being expanded, will be loamed and seeded. Site coverage, while it's conforming today, it's under 70%. It's going to be going down by about 6%, so that will actually remain conforming. Lot size is conforming, lot frontage is conforming. The buildings, as I mentioned, there's corners and pieces of them that are too close to setbacks, but they're not being changed. They're not being impacted in any way by the proposal. Other uses, this gets to the use question, other uses that are allowed either by right or by special permit on the property would result, we submit, in greater impacts than the seasonal housing that's proposed. You're allowed to have medical clinics, commercial parking lots, repair services, and retail sales by right in the CH1 zone. You can have recreation and amusement services, fast food and traditional restaurants, indoor movie theaters, and marine uses by special permit. It's a CH1 zone. This is a commercial zone. Not sure why motels were not allowed in the CH1 zone, but they're not, and that's why what's there today is pre-existing non-conforming. But when you look at the uses that are allowed by right or by special permit, what's being proposed by variance is actually less intensive and more needed in many ways than some of those other uses. As I noted, the Witchmere Beach Club will be operating and managing the property. There will be the staff and the resident apartment, as I mentioned. We do not need any Conservation Commission review. There are no changes that are being proposed that impact either wetlands or floodplain districts, and we did talk with Conservation to make sure, the department to make sure that we were okay. As I noted, there will be no changes to existing drainage or runoff. Everything that's there is going to remain as is, and it will be appropriate and will continue. The historical development and existence of these motel buildings on the property, the existence of a wetlands buffer to the rear of the property and a little bit of floodplain that comes onto the rear of the property, those areas that would all be much more heavily impacted by a redevelopment. If someone's coming in to raise and replace this site and rebuild it to be a more modern use of one of the other uses, we submit that doing all that with the involvement of the buildings, the disruption to the land, the potential greater traffic, greater lighting, greater activity, we submit that all of that, in conjunction with the urgent need for seasonal housing, does provide and present a hardship. It's a substantial hardship, and it's financial as well as practical. If, in this case, a use which is defined and provided parking for can't take place on this particular site. And we submit respectfully that under all those situations, in this case, because of the structures, a literal enforcement of the bylaw would result in the property being either underutilized or more intensively utilized without providing a needed housing option. And so we submit that that does meet the criteria for a hardship under the zoning bylaw. I did provide you a reference in my summary of reasoning to the Massachusetts zoning manual, where it does discuss that not being able to reasonably reuse a property can justify a variance, and that the reasons that justify a variance are varied. And for many of you who've heard me discuss variances before, you've heard me say that before. But each one is different, each one is unique, and we submit that in this case, we have that here. We believe that reusing the property as proposed with these existing buildings will be in keeping with and compatible with the neighborhood. We believe that the seasonal use will be much less intense than what otherwise would be provided, or could be provided. And lighting is going to comply with the lighting regulations. There'll be no negative change in artificial light, noise, litter, or odor. And redeveloping a previously disturbed and improved property, we think is a good thing, as opposed to scraping and rebuilding or finding a vacant piece of land. And this piece of land is from a design and construction point of view, already well-tailored to just move in and do the use that we're proposing. So we believe that it won't cause any nuisance hazard or congestion. For all of those reasons, we'd respectfully request that you make a finding, grant a special permit to the extent necessary, and issue a variance to allow the conversion of the use of the property as shown on the plans. If you have questions for either one of us, we'd be happy to answer them, and we appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Joe, any questions?
No questions for me.
No? Dave?
No questions.
Brian?
Okay, yeah, I have a couple. How long has the current property been out of use for purchase?
My understanding is that it was open last year,
Okay.
last season, so it has not been more than, it's just
I know
regular
that,
time.
yeah, sometimes for carrying over a special permit,
Yep.
you have to come within 2 years.
2 years, correct.
So I just wanted to just check on that.
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah, I understand it was open last year.
okay, thank you. If I could ask, is there a relationship of ownership between CHP and the Witchmere Club?
Yes, and although I can't give you more details, I'm not sure. But yeah, there is an overlap. So this is, some of the parties behind the ownership LLC are also ownership interest in Witchmere, and that is why this is a Witchmere is going to be doing. It's their employees, their staff, their management.
Yeah, I want to check on that because, first of all, I think the use of the site for what is being proposed here is an excellent one. So it's, but is there a possibility in the future that rooms could be made available to other businesses or, to use for staff and employees besides Witchmere?
I would say no, in that it's not even enough rooms for Witchmere. They need, 48 people is not enough for them to house all their employees. So I don't see a situation where they would have excess rooms to be able to do that. If you did not want that, certainly that can be a condition in a decision, because it's the intent, certainly, is that it's all Witchmere people.
Okay. But you just assume that we leave things open, the fact that it's available 12 months out of the year to house people if that came up. And there would be a possibility that in the off-season from Witchmere, that contractors or whoever that may need to have some rooms for their employees, that the facility be available for them to rent or whatever.
If that was a statement or a suggestion, if that is something that was desirable, and it was something the board wanted to grant and authorize, I think you could legally. It's not what's being specifically requested.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, the the application has not specified itself
Right.
using, it's just strictly Witchmere, just right now it's being managed by Witchmere.
Mhm.
And that could easily change at some point, and the facility be made available for other temporary employee needs, that's all.
Unless this board in approving it so limits it to Witchmere, then I agree with you.
And the last thing is, and I'm a little fuzzy on this, where the special permit starts and ends and the variance picks up. I understand the variance looking for the use, as it's not in the current code. And, so, can you re-explain to me what you're looking for the special permit, what that limitations are, and what is gonna be a variance? Because I'm having trouble distinguishing the two. Because I think it's either one or the other. I usually look at special permit or the alternative of variance, but you didn't state it that way, that the variance is an alternative to a special permit.
The reason why I was in conversation with the town planners, we were discussing the zoning and with department heads on this project. The use part for the variance is that's clear. I think it's a variance. The reason why it was felt that a special permit was also required is because we are making alterations to a pre-existing non-conforming structures.
But nothing's being altered except for the pool.
Correct, but the structures themselves are pre-existing non-conforming.
Right.
And there'll be some cosmetic changes, but we're not expanding them, rebuilding them, making them bigger. If this board feels that a special permit is not required, then I'm happy to withdraw that request at the end. I do think, no matter how we look at the special permit, I think the use is required, because the zoning bylaw does not allow the change from one non-conforming use to
So
another.
you're looking for a special permit for the facility itself, and then a use
The
variance.
variance for the use itself, yes.
I'm all set, thank you.
Chris?
Yeah, I was interested in looking through the tables and all the uses. So if you had, in the units, the number of units, but a lodging house is allowed there, a B&B is allowed there, an inn is allowed there. Now, they're all less than or equal to 12 units, right? At least on the end. So a smaller version of a similar use is allowed. Now, you want a bigger use, but it's an existing structure, so you're just repurposing something, repurposing it in a way that's already allowed. What I mean by lodging house, B&B or inn, which is a lodging house and a dormitory. I mean, I'm not sure I know the difference, but there's probably in there I could dig into it. So it sounds like a very similar use as what's allowed, but it's not called out as you pointed out. And it's certainly very similar to use to what's being done now. So it's not as if we're changing any use or any intensity of what's going on there that might cause a problem. Clearly, it's needed for the town, seasonal workers, and that's been something we're all, if you live on the Cape, you all saw that last summer in particular, so. The financial impact, I can't even imagine this type of structure being built for its purpose. In other words, if you wanted to build a dormitory, it'd be very expensive to build it just for a seasonal dormitory. I'm sure they could do it, but this is a perfect use for the existing structure at a very financially viable way of getting this extra housing. So you answered a lot of my questions on what was going on with the septic system. It's going to be covered with grass, is what you mentioned, and sort of an area, a community area for the residents to use. Would that be the use?
It'll become that, it'll be available for that, because it'll just be a lawn.
Right.
Yes.
So that would be where, like you said, they can't go back to come to the front if they wanted to.
Oh, they'd have to, right. If you're not in your room, you can only either be in the dining area or on this grass area. There's no other space on the property to congregate.
You know, you did a good job of pointing out all the issues, so I have no further questions.
Just one, the dining area is gonna be where the old dining room was there?
Correct, front left.
Okay,
No change.
that's all I had. Al?
I just had one question regarding off-season. Now, I understand the on-season use, but when it's off-season, are there any plans at all to use the building?
Right now, the only intention off-season is our staff in the year-round department. The 24 rooms would be vacant at this point.
Okay. I just have a suggestion, whomever is hired to be the house manager, not walk out on the deck in the back of the property.
Oh, yeah.
I haven't been back there. What did you
Yeah.
see?
It's an accident.
Al didn't walk on the
It's an
deck.
accident. It's a place to happen.
I will pass that along.
Tim?
I have no questions. Just the Pelham House and Dennis did a similar thing, and I think it's a great use of the property and definitely needed.
Jamie?
I had a couple of questions. Less than a mile is the Stone Horse,
Yes,
and that is a dormitory use for seasonal housing as well, correct?
correct.
So you're proposing a very similar structure in the same neighborhood, basically?
Similar use, I think the structures are
Well, I mean, similar
smaller,
use.
but yeah,
right.
similar use,
Right.
same use, frankly.
So that certainly has an effect on the neighborhood, wouldn't you say? I mean, it's not, there's a big difference between a transit usage under building and dormitory use. Now, I recognize the need for seasonal workers. However, one of the things I'm questioning is whether or not they should be in the same section of town. Why that section of town? Now, I understand that there's 2 older hotels, but does that mean that every hotel that we're gonna see as we go on is gonna have this type of housing? I don't know if that's long-term, if that's the best thing. I think perhaps seasonal housing is needed, but year-round housing is even more needed. That's my first question. I also have a question in regard to the hardship. I'm not quite sure what the hardship is.
My suggestion on the hardship is that when you look at what can reasonably be done with this property as it is there today, with the structures that are there, because 48 Section 10 and the bylaw talk about unique structures as well as soil shape and topography. In this case, this is an old-style motel. They don't build buildings, they don't build these kinds of properties anymore. And the hardship is the inability, absent the relief, to be able to repurpose the buildings, to not have to tear them down and put up something else, whether it was seasonal housing or other. And the layout of just where it is. I appreciate what you're saying about the Stone Horse, and that's a similar use. But as you said, it's approximately a mile away, or further to the east. I don't see that as being the specific neighborhood. Certainly, it's in a general part of town. But there are many, many properties between here and there. This property is not, certainly not within sight distance of that. And you have to the east, you have actually the Witchmere tennis courts. Then you have other properties, further to the west, and then it's mostly wetlands when you get further back.
Those are certainly 2 of the larger commercial properties.
In this particular part of town, sure.
Absolutely.
Yes, correct. When you look at, there is, if you can see it on the plan, if you went off the back end of the property, where the triangle is, and you go about 200 feet, you hit the Andrews River. And so the River Protection Act area for the 200 feet, it scoops the property, but it's outside of where we're doing the work. And the floodplain also comes into part of the property. When you look at the hardship, it's not just the structures. You can, to an extent, it's somewhat soil conditions, not for this use, but for a redeveloped use if this use couldn't go forward.
I understand
So that's
that,
the
but-
hardship.
But, well, perhaps this is the part I don't understand. If this was purchased by those that have a financial concern in Witchmere,
Yes.
they purchased this, it's not a great leap to assume they purchased this with this in mind, to make it
They were
dormitory
hoping to do
housing.
this with relief.
So then buying a property and then saying that it's a hardship, I don't understand that. Going in with buying a property, you know what the property is required to have. Declaring it a hardship after purchase doesn't logically make sense to me.
I appreciate what you're saying. In this case, certainly if the board says no and the owner resells it, it might become something else. That's where I see, though, that it's not self-created, because the issue that relates to this property is going to relate to this property no matter who the owner is, because motel properties like this are not, as a general rule, economically viable
I understand
anymore.
that, but-
And so I
but-
think I think the hardship is not just for this owner, it would be for any owner. Which ties into the fact that it's a hardship tied to the property, based on the structures, the improvements, and the historical
The
use.
existing structure perhaps, but
Correct.
that doesn't negate any other development on that same property.
Oh, no, it doesn't, but what I was
Well, that's what
suggesting
I'm-
is that it would have all those additional impacts that I was referring to.
Potentially.
Potentially, absolutely.
Okay. Also would suggest that the population is different in that this is a younger group, singles, and certainly not families that would be a part of a transitory motel, hotel group. So you've got these two areas of town which would have that population. And I think some of the other towns have had some problems with maintenance around those issues. But that's the only questions I have right now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Is there anyone of the public that would like to speak to this application, either in favor or in opposition? No? Attorney Crowell?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Back in the late 60s, when I was in high school,
Just identify yourself for the record, please.
William Kroll, 14 Edward Road. When I was in high school in the late 60s, and back when people used telephone books, there was a misprint for the Coachman Motor Lodge, and it gave my folks' phone number instead of Coachman. So for one whole season, we got all the calls for the Coachman. I still have my folks' phone number as my phone number. So I don't want to run that risk. So if the board can see its way to discontinuing the motel use and granting the variance, I'd be in favor of it.
Thank you, Attorney Crowell.
Did you have any messages?
Would anyone else like to speak to this petition? Hearing no one, I'll move to close the public hearing. Can I have a second, please? Second from Chris Murphy. All right, public hearing is closed. Discussion by the board. I've got a couple of comments, starting with
Please.
your point, Jamie, which is a good point, but I guess when I looked at it, yeah, they can theoretically do a conforming use on this property, but it's going to probably require raising the building, substantial investment, and, not a certain economic return. Who knows how it would go? There's vacant buildings all over here still on the Cape, so I would say that goes towards justifying the hardship requirement. The other thing is, Attorney Singer pointed out, and Brian did also, we do have an anomaly in the code that dormitories defined, but it's nowhere in the table of uses in any zone is it allowed. And this board has consistently taken the position where there's a bylaw anomaly, and we know there's been a fair number of them. We give the applicant the benefit of the doubt. And as Chris pointed out, this could have very easily been an allowed use in this particular district. It wasn't. I think it was just an oversight because we have uses like adult entertainment, sand, gravel, raw material, which certainly are more controversial uses, maybe not in this zone, but they're permitted in the code. And dormitory, I think, is a much less controversial use, and it's not in the code. I think it's just an oversight. So again, I think on that grounds, we also should give the applicant the benefit of the doubt. I think the special permit requirements are met. I think there is not going to be any more substantial detriment to the neighborhood than what's already there. It's a motel. It's going to still look the same. They're not going to do any external changes to the building. They're simply taking out the pool and going to make that the septic, and presumably the landscaping's going to make it look better. I think it's still pretty good looking motel. It's kept up, maintained. So personally, I have no problem with this particular use. on those dormitories down the street, they were dormitories for seasonal employees, and was it last year, the applicant floated the idea of requesting that one of those become apartments, but then they decided not to go
Right.
forward. So, we don't know what ultimately might happen down there. And this is for, at least initially, the specific use for Witchmere Harbor. And, you know, that's a pretty active place during the season, so seasonal housing is a major problem, not just for them, but on the Cape. So I think it's a good use for that repurposed motel. When you go down 28, I mean, you look at a lot of the motels, they're condominiums now, down towards Yarmouth, Hyannis area, and they're not, I think that's a less desirable use for the town than housing for seasonal employees. I think that's a good use for this town and for every town up here, but we're in Harwich, so those are my comments. Brian?
Well, again, I'm confused on some of the special permit and variance, but since I'm assuming Witchmere is gonna be paying a lump of sum of money to Coachman CHP for the use of the property, right? In essence, isn't that like still remains as a hotel situation where you're paying a rate to use these 24 rooms? I look at it, a special permit can be granted if it's done within 2 years of a property being vacated. And, I'm in favor of the project, but I just think financially, they could probably rearrange things that we could, grant this under strictly a special permit, besides being a variance.
Well, it's a change of use.
It's change of use.
Not necessarily, not if they call it,
No, it is.
Well,
No,
the issue, we had that discussion, and I like,
call it a hotel, you're just renting the rooms.
well, the issue becomes with a motel, you have to pay, there are economic requirements, you have to pay, there's, use and occupancy taxes and,
So this avoids.
And there's a limitation on the amount of time that.
yeah,
let's say,
is it
spend in
30
a hotel.
days, or,
That's
there's a
30
limit for what
days.
transient is. Yeah, there is
All
a,
right, thank you.
Yeah.
yeah.
Right.
Thanks for qualifying that.
And it would have to be open to the general public to be a motel.
Unless
So
it's
I-
just fully booked out for the year, if that's okay.
And I guess my feeling, special permit's a lesser deviation from the bylaw than, and from the mass statutes than a variance. So if they're getting a variance, we're already giving them the higher
Correct, I understand.
relief. So I don't see any reason not to give them a special permit for the same project. I don't know, maybe some of the construction or the revamping inside is gonna be within the setback, which would, be an intensification of a pre-existing nonconformity. If they, I think they don't meet the setback requirements on the west, do you? I got such a small plan, I can't read the numbers.
The east side, both sides are a little too close.
Yeah, they look like it, so any construction inside, if they need to upgrade the rooms, would probably, an intensification of the pre-existing nonconformity,
Correct.
which would require a special permit from us. So I don't see any difficulty
I
whatsoever.
don't either, I just was kind of looking at why we just not going a special permit versus doing a variance, that's all.
So any other comments from the board?
I don't think they've met the requirements of a special permit, or of a variance, so,
Well,
they've been convinced.
if you look at section 10 of 40 MGL, when you read the requirements for a variance, it's supposed to be based on soil condition, shape, topography of land or structures, specific to that land or structures, not generally affecting the district. Well, how would you ever get a use variance under that language? I think that's an anomaly in the statute. I don't think there are gonna be many uses where they're gonna be affected by the shape, topography of the land or structures. I think it's very difficult, in my mind, to meet that particular,
With respect for
prong.
what they want to build, though, right?
well, I'm
Other
talking
things
about
can
a
be built.
variance now. They want a variance for this use.
Right.
They could do a conforming use, but
Right.
that's not why they're here.
Right, I understand that, but Okay.
So I don't know, I just, you know, if they were gonna do a building, I think I'd have a lot more problem with it, but the statute just doesn't seem to me, never has, every time we've had a use change come up, which, gosh, in 13 years, I bet you we haven't had 6 of them. It's something that just doesn't come up. But the statute's really not written, in my opinion, for use changes. It just isn't. It's structures or, based upon the structures or the land. So, I say, hey, the state wrote the statute, we should construe it in favor of the applicant if it's not clear. Same as our bylaw. I mean, the town, the state, I'm not trying to knock the state or the town, but it's our bylaw, the state's law, they should be clear for the general public. And if it's not, well, I think this board is entitled to construe it in favor of an applicant that we think meets the requirements. So that's, I don't know, anyone else?
So there's so many uses that just, nothing tells you can do this, but like you can have a lodging house on this zone. This is essentially a lodging house, and the fact that dormitory isn't even mentioned clearly is an oversight. Well, so whether they pointed out in the narrative or the text, and then not put it where you want to know what the zoning requirements are and not mention it. So many uses are required here. And the hardship, I mean, I brought out the fact that no one's likely to build these things. It would be difficult due to the cost versus use, and the payback would be difficult on this type of use. So it's almost an indirect hardship. The town has a hardship because of the lack of workers as well, so the lack of housing for the workers, so. A lot of things that are very close, which make this, seems to me like a good variance.
Anyone else? All right, I'm gonna make the motion in this case then. I'll move that in case 2022-01, Coachman Harwich property owner be granted a special permit upon a finding that the change of use will not be substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood than the current use as a motel. And that a variance be granted for a change of use upon a finding that the requirements for a variance under Section 10 of MGL Chapter 40A are met. The application is pursuant to the Code of the Town of Harwich, Section 325-51 and 325-54, set forth in MGL Chapters 40A, Chapter 40A, Sections 6 and 10. The property is located at 774 Route 28, map 24, parcel T-1 in the CH1 and RR zoning districts. The special permit and variances are granted subject to the following conditions. 1, the sole permitted use under this variance and special permit shall be limited to rental of 24 rooms with a maximum of 48 people as a seasonal dormitory for employee housing, plus office space for no more than 5 people, plus a continuation of the manager's apartment and a seasonal dining facility for residents of the seasonal dormitory. 2, during the life of the project, all construction vehicles shall be parked on the property and not on any public street or road. 3, it's a condition of this approval that a violation of the terms and conditions of the special permit may be enforced as a violation of the Harwich zoning bylaw pursuant to MGL Chapter 48, Section 7, and the Harwich zoning bylaw, as these may be amended from time to time. Could I have a second on the motion? Second from Mr. Donahue. Discussion by the board on the motion. No discussion? All in favor of granting the special permit and variance? Aye. Jayla, the ayes are Brian, Chris, me, and Al. Nay, Jamie. So special permit granted 4 to 1.
And variance.
And variance, special permit and variance, 4 to 1.
Thank you very much. We appreciate
Okay,
your time.
you're welcome. Now, you notice I just said seasonal employees, so it
Yes.
could be seasonal employees of others than Witchmere Harbor, going to Brian's point. But if they want to do anything else, they need to come back.
Gotta come back, yes. Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome.
Do you have the specifics of that motion? Can you get them to me?
Yeah, I'll have to, because I'll have to write it up. I've got it sort of here, there, and everywhere.
All right, good deal.
I'll do it like we did last month.
My only
Thank you.
question I didn't want to ask though is it just dormant for 9 months out of the year or?
Okay.
like-
Go ahead, Al, thanks.
No, they're,
Case number 2022-02,
that
Richard
down, I
G.
know.
and Winifred M. Gunderson
must be nice.
have applied for a special permit to construct an open portico over the front entrance platform step in a pre-existing non-conforming single-family dwelling. The application pursuant to the Code of the Town of Harwich, 325-54, as set forth in MGL Chapter 40A, Section 6. The property is located at 50 Hiawatha Road, map 13, parcel P6-3, and RH1 zoning district.
Okay, we're going to have voting on this case, sir. Mr. Beasley down there at the end, Mr. Sullivan, Mr. Murphy, Mr. Donahue, and Mr. Armstrong. The other three of us will not be voting on this case, just so you know who is voting. So if you could introduce yourself, please, sir, and who's with you, and then present your petition.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening to all of you. I'm Richard Gunderson, one of the owners, and this is my wife, Winnie. We are the owners and year-round residents of the single-family home at 50 Hiawatha Road in Harwichport. We are applying for a special permit to construct a portico over the front entrance platform of the house. Our application for a building permit was denied. That's included in the packet that you received. We are applying for a special permit under Chapter 325, Section 54A of the Harwich zoning bylaw and pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 40A, Section 6, as it applies to alterations and extensions of single and two-family residences. Proposed project will intensify a pre-existing front setback nonconformity, but not create any new nonconformities. The property is located, Hiawatha is located on the south side of Lower County, midway between the CVS Post Office Square and Allen Harbor. Homes in this area, if you've been there, know that they're very often close to the street and each other, and few properties have much more than a quarter of an acre. We are asking for the special permit from the Zoning Board of Appeals that will allow us to build a small, roughly 7.5 feet by 5, a little over 5 feet deep, open portico to cover our existing front entrance platform and step. The front door entrance next to our driveway is our primary pathway in and out of the residence. Any other doors are at the opposite side of the house or in the rear. As a result, a significant amount of rain falls on the step or drips off from the melting snow. A small covering would be a much-needed improvement. In your packet also, I provided some images, essentially, just lifted them from internet pictures, of what we are proposing to build. The proposed portico is a simple, common hip roof design attached to the house and partially supported by 2 posts away from the house on the platform. At the time of submittal of this application, I did not have any design drawings. Instead, I submitted the images. However, Tom Moore, who did the original house design, came through for us, and I have added those drawings to show more detail. I've also included a couple of letters / emails of support from a couple of abutters. Most of the abutters are not year-round people, so I was able to get them to send an email. What are the pre-existing nonconformances and what is being intensified? The house is a lawfully existing, pre-existing, non-conforming structure. Zoning and dimension details are contained in the certified plot plan Attachment 1. And I refer you to that now. Dated September 15th, 2021, prepared by Demarest Land Surveying. The proposed exterior addition would intensify one existing nonconformance, that is, the front setback of the Harwich bylaw requirements of Chapter 325, Attachment 2, Table 2, Area Regulations. The footprint of the proposed exterior roof project is shown in the site plan as a darkened rectangle over the front step and platform. The rectangle represents the increased intrusion into the front setback beyond what already exists. The resulting front setback would be the 19 plus or minus feet line from the northeast corner of the proposed portico roof line to the street. This roof line will reduce the front setback from the existing non-conforming 22.6 to plus or minus 19, where 25 feet is required. This is the only intensification proposed. Building coverage. The proposed roof coverage would increase by about 38 square feet, would add 38 square feet to the building coverage, or approximately 0.5%, bringing it to a coverage number of about 16.6%, but still much less than the maximum allowed of 35%. No habitable space is being added. Pretty much everything else remains as it is. Site coverage, side and rear setback. Nothing increases or changes. It's really just the front step. We are hoping that the Zoning Board of Appeals will agree with this narrative and grant relief from the Harwich bylaw, Chapter 325, Table 2, Area Regulations, specifically front setback, and additionally find that the current structure is a lawfully pre-existing non-conforming structure. The proposed project would result in only a small intensification of one pre-existing nonconformance and would not add any new nonconformances. Howard zoning bylaw, Chapter 325, Section 54, and the legal precedent and reasoning of the Gale and Diedrich case, which interpret and apply Mass General Law 40A, Section 6, allow the zoning board to grant the relief requested, conditional on agreeing with us that the construction of this small addition would not create any additional negative impacts such as additional traffic, noise, congestion, or nuisance. No substantial detriment to the neighborhood will result more than what exists with the current nonconformity. Thank you for considering the petition. I'll answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you.
Sure.
Joe, questions, comments?
On the attachment 2, the roof overhang looks pretty substantial. Do you know how much coverage that is?
Yeah,
Did I miss it?
no, I don't think it's measured, but if you look at the,
The right side elevation one?
yeah, well, actually, the left side elevation. Because the left side elevation, if I can find mine, right side. Yeah, you're right, I'm sorry, right side. Basically shows that the upper floors have an extension out, which is why I don't have gutters, because I had the roof designed so that most of the runoff would not fall down the face of the house. So the real extension is probably in the area of less than 3 feet.
Okay, and the existing step is right around the same coverage that you're looking to cover with the roof?
Yes, yep, it's, the roof drip line would be right at the bottom of the bottom front step.
No further questions?
Thank you. Dave?
No questions.
Brian?
Ms. Garza, do either you or your wife have professional experience as real estate attorneys? Because I found this application to be excellent.
I was an attorney. I'm
I had the
retired.
same thought, Brian.
And plus the fact, I must have watched 36 of these meetings.
Oh, God
And I've
bless you.
listened to Bill Kroll so many times. And I said, if he can win, I can win.
Well, I just wanted to ask, I didn't see Esquire after your name, and I just thought this was extremely well presented, so.
Good, thank you.
Just don't call this house.
No, I don't know his number, no.
Looking for a part-time, clerk, you're all set. I have no other questions, thank you very much, and.
Chris?
Okay, thank you.
No, I've had a house with this situation. I understand totally why you want to put this thing in.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I have no questions.
I'd just make a comment for the board. The proposed project will intensify one or more existing nonconformities, will not create any new nonconformity, and will not be substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood than the existing structure, in my opinion. As a result, the project, in my opinion, meets the requirements of the bylaw, the Gale and Deirdre cases for the issuance of a special permit by the board. Al?
I have no questions.
Tim?
I have no questions.
Jamie?
I agree with the chairman, and I currently have a house that has the same doorway, so I completely understand why you're doing this.
Well, talk to Tom Moore, and he can draw up some drawings.
Just
for
glad
you.
my wife isn't here to hear you say that.
Thank you.
Would anyone in the public like to comment on this application? Hearing no one, I'll move to close the public hearing. Can I have a second, please? Second by Joe Beasley. All in favor of closing the public hearing? Those voting members, yes?
Aye.
Aye, okay, public hearing is closed. Any discussion by the, well, I'll entertain a motion in this case, I guess.
Case number 2022-02, Richard G. and Winifred M. Gunderson have applied for a special permit. I move that the special permit in this case, having found that the applicant meets the requirements of the bylaw, along with the Gale and Deirdre case, as proposed, the project will intensify one or more nonconformities, and will not create a new nonconformity, and will not be substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood than the pre-existing structures. All work shall be performed in accordance with the submitted application.
I think we need the exceptions.
need the,
Yeah, the conditions, yeah.
The conditions with regard to the property the permits is granted rather to the following conditions. The property is in a congested area. There shall be no demolition or exterior construction or new landscaping during the period of June 30 through Labor Day of any year. During the project, all construction vehicles.
No, I don't think he's got
we don't
room.
need that,
No.
right. It is a condition of this approval that the violation of the terms and conditions of the special permit may be enforced as violations of the Harwich zoning bylaw pursuant to MGL Chapter 48, Section 7, and the Harwich zoning bylaw, as these may be amended from time to time.
Could I have a second on the motion? Second by Chris Murphy. Any discussion by the board on the motion? All in favor, signify by aye.
Aye.
Okay, granted, 5-0.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations. Good luck on your project.
Good luck. Do you need any of this
You need your
paperwork?
plans back or anything?
If you want to get rid of them, I'll scoop them up, sure.
Sure. Yes. Good luck.
No, I need mine, thank you. These go into the file.
I'm left-handed.
Expand my garage, but not allowed. I'd love to expand my garage, but you can't fit a car, it's too small to fit a car in.
Thanks, Shayla.
Like you think a garage would be, I don't know. But I
Okay,
couldn't go any
now-
further to the side, because then I'm already beyond the line, so of what you can,
2022-03.
all right?
Hold on.
First world problems.
Wait a minute, everybody, we still got business here. Mr. Gunderson?
Case number 2022-03, Christopher W. Cooney, through his agent Stephanie Sequin, P.E. of Ryder and Wilcox, Inc., has applied for a special permit to increase pre-existing non-conforming site coverage to allow the construction of a pool, patio, and garage expansion. The application pursuant to the code of the town of Harwich, 325-54, set forth in NBO chapter 48, section 6. The property is located at 4 Geraldine Ave, map 16, parcel A1-6 in the RL zoning district.
Okay, we will have voting on this case. Mr. Nunnally, Mr. Sullivan, Mr. Murphy, Mr. Donahue, and Mr. Armstrong. Okay, Attorney Crowell, if you could please introduce yourself for the record and your companion there at the table, and then present your petition, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Attorney William Kroll from Harwich Port, and I have seated here with me Chris Cooney, the owner of the property in question. He has asked that I make the presentation to you this evening. Stephanie Sequin from Ryder and Wilcox is seated to our rear. She's the engineer on the project. This property is located off of Neal Road, south of Route 28, Harwich Port, in the Sacotucket Bluffs area. It's fairly short and sweet. You folks have had longer presentations this evening, so this is a request simply for the swimming pool. The garage that's mentioned has already been built. There was a separate building permit. So this is just to construct a swimming pool that meets all of the setback requirements of the bylaw and building coverage. The site coverage, which is currently non-conforming at 31.3, 30% is the max. The site coverage would go up slightly to 33.7. So you're talking about 2.4% increase in site coverage as a result of constructing the pool. The Conservation Commission, Mr. Cooney's already been to the Conservation Commission. They've approved it. They've issued an order of conditions. He's also been to the Board of Health and has his septic permit for the new septic system. The Gale case, as you know, says that if you have an existing nonconformity, that you can intensify that nonconformity upon a finding by this board that there would not be a substantial detriment to the entire neighborhood. So Mr. Cooney's position is that since we're a little bit over on the site coverage at 31.3, we're an existing nonconformity. He wants to intensify that by 2.4% to 33.7% on site coverage. It would submit that there would be no substantial increase in noise, odors, fumes, congestion, traffic, or the like. It would not create a nuisance. It would not be a substantial detriment to the entire neighborhood. It doesn't mean that a particular abutter or neighbor might not perhaps be in favor of it, of the petition or like it, but the board has to make a finding that it would be a substantial detriment to the entire neighborhood. So we would ask that you grant the special permit this evening. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Attorney Crowell. Joe? Comments, questions?
No questions.
No? David?
No question.
Brian?
Just one minor question. I see where the garage was already approved. I saw the footings are in. Did the garage coverage, is the 31.3%, does that include the garage, or is the garage coverage in the 33.7?
The other way, it's to the 31.
So the garage is already included in the 31.3? Correct. That's one question, thank you.
Chris?
I have no questions.
The only question I have, looking at the plan, it looks like the plants and the lawn are going right through the pool on the drawing there. I know that's not possible, but
Are going right, the plants are going right
it
through
looks
it,
like it's
did you say?
going right through the corner of the pool there and onto the patio. I mean, at least on the drawing.
No, I think the one line that you're looking at is a 60-foot offset from the wetland. That's one line, and then it's kind of, it may be just the image.
I was looking at the little squigglies there. It says proposed native plantings, and it looks like it goes right across the pool and the patio.
Ms. Sequin says that it's the existing wetland edge of clearing.
So that's coming out?
Yes.
Okay. I assume that, but I
With,
just...
with the Conservation Commission's approval, and then there'll be re-landscaping afterwards.
Okay, in my package, I had the garage door drawings, but we don't need those, is what you're saying.
Correct.
Okay. I do think that we need the construction time restriction and general condition, because it's, all these cases tonight are in pretty tight neighborhoods. Unless, wait a minute. On this one, you actually might have enough parking on site for your construction vehicles. Do you?
Yes.
Okay, so I think, yeah, I think we could just condition it that the parking be on site.
There was two construction vehicles. While I was there, I was the third vehicle. There was still room for other vehicles around these.
Yeah, this, I didn't see the note in time. Sorry, so yeah, I
Also-
think we could require them to park on site.
Also note that the garage will be completed, the container and the driveway will be removed before the pool construction will start.
But you're gonna do the new proposed circular drive, right?
Correct. But right now, there's a container because we moved all the stuff out of the garage. So the garage will be built, move into the garage, remove the container, clean up, and then start the pool construction. So there'll be even more parking for the pool construction than there currently is now.
Okay, good, thank you. Tim,
I have no questions.
Jamie?
No questions.
Is there anyone in the public that would like to speak to this petition? Yes, sir, if you could come to the microphone, please, and identify yourself.
My name is Joe Toll. I live at 90 Neal Road, and I speak in opposition to the granting the special permit for the pool and for the patio, and according to this thing, the garage. And I also presented a letter from people who live at 94 Neal Road, Shaw's, the Charles and Jane Shaw, who also voice their opposition to the plan to build a pool at this site. The site is kind of an interesting site. It's kind of a sliver. It's not on Neal Road at all. It's a kind of a sliver in the woods from the Saquatucket Harbor against a lot of the houses, the abutters on Neal Road, of which I am one. The land was very, very low. And so when they built the house, I forget how many years ago, probably 5 or 6 years ago, they had to import all sorts of sand and dirt to build it up. And that's what they did. After they chopped down the trees, they built it up. And in order to hold back the sand there, before they built the house, they had to put I think you call it a retention wall, a concrete wall to keep the sand in place so it wouldn't get into the butters' land. And that is still there. It sticks up maybe about 3 or 4 feet. And it's right against this property, the backyard of this property at 94 Neal Road, and against the property that I have at 90 Neal Road. And the other day, last week, I was out there in the backyard. I heard all these buzzsaws, chainsaws, and they had a crew out there knocking down the trees, ready to go forward with the construction. As we know, this construction, especially of a swimming pool, had to dig up the septic system that was there and place it in another area, and I don't know where that is. The swimming pool, of course, the house and everything is right next to Saquatucket Harbor, Andrews River that flows right by it. And so we have a swimming pool with chlorine in it, or other cleansing elements in it, right next to the ocean. I think that raises a certain amount of difficulties there. The house is not compatible to the neighborhood. This house sits high above on this, looks like 6 feet of sand, high above the other houses. And it looks down on us. It's like a castle up there. It's not compatible with the neighborhood. Most of the houses in the neighborhood are probably built around the 70s, shingle, one-story houses. I'm only one of the few people in that section of Neal Road right next to Route 28 that live there all year round. The rest of the houses are empty, as is this house most of the year. It seems to be a house not for a residence, but for rentals, which is similar to many of the houses in Saquatucket. The houses that we live in at this section of Neal Road are probably, 400,000, 500,000. This house is probably in the millions, a couple of million houses. And so what we're faced here, the abutters are faced here with the Nantucketization of Cape Cod. Just big money gets big money, gets whatever money wants. And that's what we're struggling with here. That to keep the character of Cape Cod, especially this end of Neal Road, which is rather humble abodes. You go down the beach end down there, and you get into the $2 million, $3 million, $5 million houses. You go around Saquatucket Block Circle, and they're building a house there that's just a monstrous house. I volunteer with Habitat for Humanity, building affordable housing, and you could put maybe 4 Habitat houses on the area that this house is being built on. Is this what we want on Cape Cod? Is this what the future of Cape Cod is, to turn us into another Nantucket? So I would ask this committee to consider that. Geraldine Road is a little spit of a road, dirt road, angling in off of Neal Road to service this one house there. So I would ask you, along with the abutter next to me at Charles and Jane Shaw at 94 Neal Road, to turn down this special request for a swimming pool. We don't need a swimming pool. You'll live right next to the ocean. 5 minutes and you're in the ocean. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Attorney Crowell,
Yes,
would you like to address any of the points raised?
sure. I want to remind the board that the house is already there. Mr. Cooney did not build the house, it was built years ago. He purchased it 2 years ago. Once these renovations are done, this is going to become his personal residence, not a rental. And I want to remind the board that the sole issue before the board tonight is whether it wants to grant a special permit to allow for the site coverage to increase by 2.4% as a result of putting in the pool. He's not asking to demolish and replace the house and build a castle. The house already exists. It's up high because they built it in accordance with all the floodplain requirements. It had to be up high. As for comments about the pool, it's going to be a saltwater pool. And pool is a reasonable use of the property for many residences in the area. I would also suggest that the board knows that this is in the Saquotucket Bluffs area, south of Route 28, and there are many highly valued, high-priced properties in that area. This is not something new to that area. So the issue before the board is whether increasing the site coverage by 2.4% would constitute a substantial detriment, devalue essentially the properties in the neighborhood to a significant extent, and that it would be a substantial detriment to the entire neighborhood, not just, as I mentioned earlier, to an immediate abutter, but to the entire neighborhood. And I believe that the Gale case, as this board knows, as the chairman knows, is you have to look at the whole situation and say, is this increase of 2.4% going to have a substantial impact on the neighborhood? Substantial impact. Not just that one abutter or two abutters are not in favor of it, but is it a substantial impact to the entire neighborhood? Mr. Cooney, anything to add?
No, I mean, it is going to be my primary residence. I purchased the house less than 2 years ago. I've been in the planning process for the garage addition and the pool for over 10 months. And this is where I've ended up. We're going to landscape it very nicely. Like I said, I didn't build the home. I purchased what was there.
Right, and I mean, I might also add, Mr. Chairman, I meant to add that we have a septic permit from the Board of Health. The Board of Health is good with the septic system. We have a recorded order of conditions last summer from the Conservation Commission. They're not out there cutting down trees without the Conservation Commission's approval. This has all been permitted properly by Mr. Cooney. He's just following the procedures and the system. And that's why he's here for the slight increase in the site coverage. He's going through channels, going through the proper channels. Thank you.
And I might just add that at a minimum, we are going to re-landscape. And we have an approved plan to do that.
Is there anyone else in the public that would like to address this petition? Hearing no one, I'll move to close the public hearing. Could I have a second?
Second.
Okay, second from Mr. Nunnally. All in favor of closing the public hearing? Okay, public hearing's closed. I'll entertain a motion in the case.
Case number 2022-03, Christopher W. Cooney, through his agent, Attorney William Kroll, has applied for a special permit. The special permit has been granted. We have found that the applicant meets the requirements of the bylaw, Gale Dietrich cases. As proposed, the project will intensify one or more existing nonconformities, will not create a new nonconformity, and will be a substantially more, not substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood than the existing structures. All work shall be performed in accordance with the plans submitted. The plans, this does not have any substantial conditions as a result of the location of the property and the access to the property. Otherwise, I think it's been fairly well covered.
I think we should include these two. Yeah.
Okay, during the life of the project, all construction vehicles shall be parked on the property and not any public road, please, street or road. It is the condition of the approval that a violation of the terms and conditions of the special permit may be enforced in violation of the Harwich zoning bylaw pursuant to MGL Chapter 48, Section 7, and the Harwich zoning bylaw, as these may be amended from time to time.
Second on that motion? Jamie, second. Jamie Armstrong. Discussion by the board on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Right, special permit granted
Thank you very much.
unanimously.
Case number 2022-04. Michael R. Ahern and Pamela L. Ahern, trustees of the Ahern Realty Trust 2, 2020 UAT dated 10/30/20, through their agent, Attorney William Crowe, apply for special permit, or in the alternative, a variance to remove an existing non-conforming deck and replace it with a screen porch in the same footprint. The applicant is, application is pursuant to the Code of Town of Howard 32554, as set forth MGL 40A, Section 6, and if needed, Section 10. The property is located at 17 Woodbine, map 12. That's Woodbine Road, by the way. Map 12, parcel X1-29 in the RH1 zoning district.
Okay, on this case, we'll have voting Mr. Sullivan, Mr. Murphy, Mr. Donahue, Mr. Bailey, and Mr. Armstrong. Attorney Crowell, if you could once more introduce yourself for the record, please, and who was at table with you, and then present your petition.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Attorney William Crowell from Harwich, and I have seated with me Michael Ahern, who is, along with his wife, co-trustee of the Ahern Realty Trust that owns the property. The property's located between Route 28 and Lower County Road in Howardsport, down in that neighborhood behind Jake Rooney's, going out to Lower County Road. The petition is requesting to remove the existing deck as shown on the existing conditions plot plan by Moran Engineering and replace it with a screened porch on the same footprint. So there'll be no changes in setbacks. They will all remain the same. Site coverage will remain the same. Because they are converting deck to habitable space, that turns it into building coverage. So the building coverage will increase slightly from 14.5% to 18.8% as a result of converting the deck to habitable space. But that increase is still below the 30%, well below the 30% maximum. Because the deck is located on the east side, closer than 20 feet to the east side, when you convert that to habitable space, then that's intensifying an existing nonconformity, as this board has seen many times in the past. There's some question in my mind whether it's actually habitable space, because there's no intention to put any heat screened-in porch. So, but assuming it is habitable space, we thought it's safer to come to the board, and as did the building commissioner. So, that being said, because we're creating habitable space within the 20-foot setback, even though it's all in the same footprint, we're here before this board asking for a special permit. The Conservation Commission has said they're fine with this. We don't need to have an order of conditions. The Board of Health has said they have no issues with this, and so we're contending tonight that there would be no substantial increase in noise, odors, fumes, congestion, or the like, and no substantial detriment to the neighborhood, to the entire neighborhood, and ask that the special permit be granted. Thank you.
Thank you. Joe?
No questions.
Dave?
No questions.
Brian?
No questions.
Chris?
No questions.
The only comment, I think it does meet the requirements of the bylaw, the Gale and Deirdre cases, and I think there will be no substantial detriment to the neighborhood. I do think, though, we'll probably need the construction time limitation in the general condition. Al?
I have no further questions.
Tim?
No questions?
Jamie?
No questions.
Is there anyone in the public that would like to speak to this application?
I think you can get.
Hearing no one, I'll move to close the public hearing. Can I have a second, please, on that motion? Second from Chris Murphy. All in favor? Public hearing closed.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, regarding any condition that you might put into the motion, the only construction vehicle will be Mr. Domos, the builder. It would just be one construction vehicle that could be parked on site to convert this to a screened-in porch.
Okay, I'm okay with that, as long as they will put in the restriction that during the project, they have to park on site, not on the road, because that whole area, everything is tight. in
Very
this town.
tight.
Everything. Well, almost everything. Okay, go ahead. Sorry. I'll entertain a motion in the case, please.
The case number 2022-04, Michael A. R. Ahern and Pamela L. Ahern, trustee for the Ahern Realty Trust 2. Property is, the applicant is pursuant to town of Harwich, chapter 3.554, set forth in MGL, chapter 40A, section 6, and the property is located at 17 Woodbine, map 12, parcel X1-29 in the RH1 zoning district. The proposed project will intensify one or more existing nonconformities and not create any new nonconformities, will not be substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood than the existing structure. All work will be performed in accordance with the plans submitted to the application. The property is a congested area. The demolition and landscaping, there will be no demolition.
No.
No, we're gonna get to
Yeah,
the next
that one.
During the life of the project, all construction vehicles shall be parked on the property and not on any public street or road. And it is a condition of this approval that the violation of the terms and conditions of the special permit may be enforced as violations of the Harwich zoning bylaw pursuant to MGL chapter 48, section 7, and the Harwich zoning bylaw as these may be amended from time to time.
Could I have a second on the motion, please? Second by Tim Bailey. Any discussion by the board on the motion? All in favor of granting the special permit?
Aye.
Aye, unanimous. Special permit granted.
Thank you very much.
Yep. Good luck on your project. Call the next case.
Case number 2022-05, Francis M. Berto, trustees for Sail Loft Road Nominee Trust, through their agent, Attorney William Kroll, have applied for a special permit or any alternative variance to demolish, replace pre-existing non-conforming single-family dwelling. The application is pursuant to the code of the town of Howard, 32554, set forth in MGL chapter 48, section 6, as needed, section 10. The property is located 6 Sail Loft Road, parcel 7, parcel D-27 in the RH1 zoning district.
Okay, voting on this case, we'll have Mr. Beasley, Mr. Sullivan, Mr. Murphy, Mr. Donahue, and Mr. Armstrong. Okay, Attorney Crowell, if you could once more identify yourself for the record, please, and who's at the table with you, and then present your petition.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Attorney William Kroll from Howardsport, And I have seated with me the owner of the property, Francis Ratto, trustee of the trust that owns the property. And this property is located off of C Street, south of Route 28 in Harwich Port. The Rattos had previously submitted a request before this board, and then I withdrew it. And this board very nicely said, you don't need to pay another filing fee if you come back by February, so here we are. So the petitioner appreciates that, and there were some further modifications that they wanted to make. So this is the final plan to demolish and replace the pre-existing non-conforming single-family residence as shown on the certified plot plan by East Southeast LLC, dated December 20, 2021, and the Thomas Moore building and elevation plans. What the owner is seeking to do is to construct habitable space above the garage, and they're going to be moving, she's going to be moving the garage slightly to the south and ever so slightly to the west, but basically on the same footprint as the existing house, as you can see. So there's not going to be a significant difference there. The move southerly will be 3.9, it's going from 3.9 feet to 8.0 feet. So they're moving southerly 4.1 feet. And then it's moving easterly, it's improving it from 1.9 feet on the easterly setback to 2.2 feet. The southerly setback is improving by almost 3 feet. The westerly setback will remain the same. So all of the setbacks are non-conforming, but we're making them more conforming, or double negative, less non-conforming, right? Making it better. Since, again, we're creating habitable space within the 20-foot setback by constructing habitable space over the garage, which is within 20 feet of the easterly lot line, we're taking an existing nonconformity. The house is already too close. The garage is already too close, but we're creating habitable space on the second floor, so we're intensifying that nonconformity under the Gale case. So we're here for that. Plus, when you take that garage and creating habitable space and you move it down 4.1 feet, that 4.1 feet is creating more nonconforming structure that's only a couple of feet from the easterly lot line. So that's also intensifying an existing nonconformity. As you know, our bylaw says if you have an existing nonconformity and you just stay along that same line without increasing that nonconformity, that's a special permit case that's defined in our bylaw. Here, we're stepping it back a little bit, 0.3 feet from 1.9 to 2.2, making it a little bit better, but we're going along that same parallel line with the boundary line. So those are the two main aspects of this special permit, is creating habitable space within the 20 feet and then creating more structure, 4.1 feet of more structure within the 20-foot setback. The pergola, the patio and the pergola on the west side will also be reconstructed, but on the same footprint. So the existing building coverage, which is 28.8 and is conforming, because 30% is the max, will go to 29.1. That will still be conforming. The existing site coverage is currently over the maximum. The maximum is 35%. So it's non-conforming at 39.8. We want to increase that to 46.1. So No, Mr. Sullivan, I don't think that that's too much. We haven't gotten to my cutoff yet of 75%. But you brought that up at a prior hearing.
Yeah,
Where would I draw the line? I haven't drawn the line.
you have a long memory.
So, in accordance with the findings of the Gale case, there will be no substantial increase in noise, fumes, odors, congestion, or the like, and in the owner's opinion, this will not constitute a substantial detriment to the entire neighborhood. It will not create a substantial impact to the entire neighborhood. It's basically the same house on the same footprint with living space above the garage. So we ask you to grant the special permit this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Joe?
Is there a crawl space or is it a full poured foundation? Because if you said, and let's say I misunderstood, you're moving the setbacks. If it was a crawl space, it'd be easier to pour a new foundation than it is if you had to break up all that's already there.
Off the top of my head, let's see. To the top left on the site plan, Mr. Eldridge usually addresses everything. The board, and it may be on the building plans itself. We should have a foundation plan if it's going to be a foundation.
Because what you're saying is you're gonna move the whole foundation over a little bit.
Yes,
Building.
so it's a full basement?
Currently?
No, the new one,
Yes.
yes. Mhm.
But the old one, is the old one a full basement as well? It's crawl space then, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. No other questions?
Sits on sand, so that will be an improvement also,
Yeah.
with the full
That was
foundation.
my only question.
Okay, David?
No question.
Brian?
Yeah, thank you. Mr. Mayor, as I look at your home address, I grew up down the street from you on Emerson Road. How long have you lived on Richardson?
My mom, Elizabeth, bought it in the early 60s from Eleanor Belmont.
Okay, I know, I remember that whole property there when it used to all be fields. I was a little kid growing up there. And I think I always. So it's nice seeing a hometown in this application.
It is a small town, a small world, Mr. Sullivan, because if Eleanor Belmont owned that house in Needham,
No, in Harwich.
okay, he's talking
No,
about
I'm
the one.
talking about Needham.
Needham.
Oh, in Needham,
Yes,
I'm on
okay.
Richardson. I'm right down the corner.
Right, yeah.
I
that's what I'm
walk the
saying.
dog on Emerson.
Right, how long you lived on Richardson?
18 years.
Okay. Mine was the second house on the right, you walked
Okay.
on Emerson Road. The current house has a bulkhead, and I was gonna ask the same question. I didn't see anything in the plans for a bulkhead in the outside, and I don't know whether or not that impacts setbacks or not.
Well, I think that's what that is on the north side with the X. The back side of the property, not the X, but the one next to it, he's got it says concrete patio, and then either that's the bulkhead or that's the
That's the
bulkhead.
bulkhead.
This one with the X is the
Yep,
bulkhead?
I believe so.
Mhm.
Current bulkhead.
Where is it again?
So if you, looking at the plan,
Yeah, I am,
first of all, the existing bulkhead is right here.
correct.
So the similar feature now on the, that bulkhead,
Oh, wait a minute, okay, wait a minute, I see it now, thank
Yeah.
you. I didn't catch it before. All right.
the two bifold doors.
In the rear of the house, the retaining wall there, is that on your property, or is that the abutter's property?
No, that's our property.
Okay. It just looked like it, I don't know if you're going to, seems like you might be needing some attention at some point. Okay, and, that's, other than that, the demolition almost started with the construction on 8 Sail, off road with, that cave in. I said, some of the taking down the existing house is almost, came close to starting with
No.
what's happening on Sailor
No.
Road. But, I'm all set, no other questions.
Chris?
Surprised Brian didn't ask, so on that 46.1%, if you're basically replacing what's already there, it's jumping up quite a bit. Is that because the concrete patio is replacing grass?
I believe it's because it says the driveway is gonna be expanded. See the dot in the middle of the driveway, and it goes over to a line that says driveway to be expanded?
So it's mainly the driveway that's gonna be,
I would say so. I was looking at that with the same, questioning eye. It may also be due to the concrete patio and the pergola to be reconstructed. I don't know if they're, making that a little bit bigger, but it's on the same footprint. I don't know if it's going
No, it's the same.
same footprint, so,
It's the driveway.
my client is saying it's the driveway, as I suspected.
the driveway will be significantly widened. Everything's small there, so, yeah.
Right.
Okay. No further questions.
Yeah, the only comments I have is we'll need our two conditions here. That's pretty tight. What's going on next door? Is that the one we approved last year?
8 Sail-Off, yes.
Right, that's in the works right now.
Okay, I assume that, but since it was on your drawing here, I just wanted to verify. Al?
I have an observation as opposed to a question. Having looked at that property, and again, the property is number 8, the garage in the back may not have to be demolished. It looks like it's going to be undermined, and has already started being undermined. So after the storm this weekend, you may have lesser of an undermining.
I did move the car out of the garage.
I hope so. I hope so.
Trying to keep the destruction costs down.
All right, Tim?
I have no questions.
Jamie?
No questions.
Is there anyone in the public that would like to speak to this application? Hearing no one, I'll move to close the public hearing. Could I have a second, please? Second from Joe Beasley. All in favor of closing the public hearing? Aye.
Aye.
Public hearing's closed. I'll entertain a motion in the case.
All right, case number 2022-05, Francis M. Prato, trustee for Sale Loft Road nominee, trust through the arranger William Kroll, has been granted a special permit for the property located at 6 Sale Loft Road. The permit, in this case, having been found, the applicant meets the requirements of the bylaw, Gale Taste, and Deidre cases. As proposed, the project will intensify one or more existing nonconformities, will not create any new nonconformities, and will not substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood of the existing structures. All work shall be performed in accordance with the plans submitted with this application. The permit is subject to the following conditions. There shall be no demolition, exterior construction on the new landscape, new landscaping during the period of June 30 through Labor Day of any year. It is the condition of this approval that violation of the terms and condition, the special permit may be enforced as a violation of the Harwich zoning bylaw pursuant to NGL Chapter 48, Section 7, and the Harwich zoning bylaw, as these may be amended from time to time.
Can I have a second on that motion, please? Second from Mr. Sullivan. Discussion by the board on the motion? No? I'll take a vote on the motion. All in favor? Aye, okay. Special permit granted unanimously. Good luck on your project.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Good luck.
Nice new house to put in.
Take care. Safe trip back.
One more.
Long day.
No, he is, oh, no, wait,
Yeah, Yeah, I was gonna say, your back seems to be acting
Yeah,
up
yeah,
here
that's-
tonight. We can walk
He's done it right.
one at a time.
Get one of those standing.
Equal seat at the table, Kathy.
Give this guy a damn plaque. Figured out.
Yeah, that's a long day for you anyway.
Yeah, I don't think you want a long ride sitting down in a car.
Next two are pretty straightforward.
Which one? Oh, is that right? Yeah.
After that first one, I was gonna be like,
All right, moving along. Go ahead, Al.
Okay, case number
They weren't going to, that's why I had to read
2022-0
Come on, we got two more cases.
L.E. and Barbara L. Rosenberg,
Hope
through
it's
their
not Barbara
agent,
L.
Attorney William Crowe, have applied for this modification to a special permit granted in the case of 2021-42 with an adjustment to the dormers of the replacement single-family dwelling applicants pursuant to Code of Town of Harwich 32554 as set forth in MGL Chapter 40A, Section 6, if needed, Section 10. The property is located as 36 Hiawatha Road, map 6, parcel B1-3 in the RH1 zoning district.
Okay, Attorney Crowell, if you could introduce
Yes.
yourself for the record, please, and those two ladies at the table with you.
Sure.
And present your case, please.
Thank you. Attorney William Kroll from Harwich Port. I have seated with me Barbara J. Rosenberg, one of the owners of the property, and Kathy DeMeyer, the owner and general manager of Encore Construction. So in hopes that we can keep speeding up each petition here, this hopefully won't take very long. We already, and I understand next month may be a busy month. So I was going to call Mr. Gunderson if anybody has his home number. After he threw me under the bus and said, if Attorney Kroll can do it, anybody can do it. So
Yeah, wow.
I'm happy to hand it off if he wants it. But anyway, we were here earlier in 2021, last November, and obtained, in September 29th, and I attached that as part of the petition. The approval, you already approved this demolish and replace petition. So cutting to the chase, the only change is in the dormers. There's no change in the footprint, the setbacks, the building coverage, the site coverage, nothing changes except when you look at this picture, the top picture has a fairly straight dormer with two double windows, all right? The proposal that you approved had this picture with two, Kathy, A-frame dormers?
It's a Nantucket dormer,
Nantucket dormer,
so two doghouse dormers.
doghouse, that's what I was trying to think of. Two doghouse dormers, and the Rosenbergs decided against that. So they want to go back to something similar to what exists, which is this one here at the bottom, that's got three windows. A shed dormer, all right? Nothing else changes, the whole petition. So we're asking, it's my understanding the board and the building commissioner felt more comfortable if we came back seeking this board's approval, endorsement to simply modify the special permit to allow for the construction of the dwelling according to these new plans that are dated December 20, 2021 by GMT Home Design. If those are the plans that get stamped, then that's the house that will get built. So everything else, I'm assuming you don't want me to go through the whole litany of why the special permit should be granted again. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, we're going to have voting Mr. Nunnally, Mr. Sullivan, Mr. Murphy, Mr. Donahue, and Mr. Armstrong. So this is just a modification of the pre-approved special permit, and I was the one that made him come back because when I looked at the drawings, I could not figure out what was what. And I thought it best to come back and we'll stamp if the board approves, will stamp the drawings that are going to the building department, to the building commissioner, to issue the building permit. I did not think it appropriate that they go with a handwritten drawing to the building commissioner and say, this is what the board approved, so that's why they're back. Not trying to give you a tough time, just
No.
explaining why you needed to come back.
And that's fine, and the board, the Rosenbergs wanted me to point out that you waived the filing fee, and they very much appreciate that.
Yeah, we're not trying to be mean, it just, our obligation is to make sure there's no substantial detriment to the entire neighborhood in granting a special permit, and without the final drawings, I felt the board could not really meet that requirement. We needed to see what it was. And I just couldn't understand it, but I'm not good at that thing anyway. Anyway, Joe, questions, comments?
No.
David?
No question.
Brian? Chris?
No.
No questions?
Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak to this petition? Hearing no one, I'll move to close the public hearing. Second, please.
Second.
Who said second? Okay, David? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay, public hearing is closed. I think on the conditions,
Yeah.
this is all you need to do. This will be the only condition when you get there. Okay, I will entertain a motion in the case, Mr. Donahue.
2022-06, Alan P. and Barbara J. Rosenberg, through their agent, Attorney William Kroll, have been granted a special permit for 36 Hiawatha Road, map 6, parcel B1-3, RH-1 zoning district. The special permit has found the applicant meets the requirements of the bylaw and the Gale and Diedrich cases, Dale and Diedrich cases. As proposed, the project will intensify one or more existing nonconformities and will not create any new nonconformities and will not be substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood than the existing structures. All work will be performed in accordance with the plans submitted with this application. The special permit is subject to the following conditions. All conditions of approval set forth in the board's decision in case number 2021-42, dated October 13 of 2021, shall remain unchanged in full force and effect.
Okay, thank you. Can I have a second on that motion?
Second.
Second, by Dave Nunley. Any discussion by the board on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion, amendment granted unanimously.
Thank you.
Good
Thank you
luck
very
with your
much.
project.
Said something about it being. I swear I saw it here somewhere. Here it is.
Okay, Al.
Case number 2022-07. Edward Steiger has applied for a special permit to construct a portico/porch over the front entrance of the pre-existing non-conforming single-family dwelling. The application pursuant to the town of Code of the Town of Harwich, 32554, as set forth in MGL Chapter 48, Section 6. The property is located at 7 Laurie Lane, map 22, parcel A4-3, in the RL zoning district.
Okay, thank you. If you could introduce yourself, sir, and then present your petition, please.
Sure. Good evening, everyone. My name is Alec DePaula. I'm with DePaula's Contracting. Mr. Steiger, I was under the impression this was going to be another Zoom meeting, and I'm the company building the portico for him. So I live in West Barnstable, and I got the call around 7:15, so I ran down here, and I'm wishing that I can present this for him.
Okay, you may. Let me tell you who's going to vote first, though, before we go on. Brian Sullivan, Chris Murphy, Al Donahue, Tim Bailey, and Jamie Armstrong will be the voting members.
Okay.
But yes, does anyone have any problem with him representing the owner in this case?
No. All right, thank you.
Okay, you may present the petition, sir.
Sure. So the house, as of right now, has an existing porch, which is 4 feet deep by 16 wide. And Mr. Steiger is hoping to be approved today to increase the size of that deck, which is under the porch, for another 4 feet forward, and build a portico which is about 5 by 5 right above the door entrance. So we're here today because we don't meet the setbacks. We are a few feet short. The construction is a simple construction style. It meets the neighborhood styles. It doesn't pop up. It's nothing, too modern or anything like that, so, as you can see on the plans. And it's only increasing 22 squares of the roof. So that's pretty much it.
That's it?
That's it.
Okay. Joe?
No questions.
Dave?
Yeah, no questions.
Brian?
Really, no questions itself, but
Mhm.
I just want to try, the petition shows the build a portico porch in front of the house.
Mhm.
I didn't know whether or not we need to clarify that it's also expanding the deck, which it doesn't really mention in the,
The porch line is gonna stay where it's at, so just the deck is going to extend another 4 feet.
Right, and I'm just wondering if on our proposed approval to go that route, if we have to be more clear, to clarify better, that we're also not just dealing with a portico, but with the deck itself as well, that's all. Because it says that we permit to construct a portico porch over the front entrance, it doesn't mention the deck in those lines and the expansion of the deck.
I'm assuming that's what he means by porch. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know, but,
That
Okay,
is
so
correct.
then you feel that it's properly explained. Okay, I just
Yeah.
wanted to raise that issue on the deck.
Sure.
To make
yeah,
sure
the
that-
plan does, you're correct. The plan shows proposed deck, and there's, petition showed proposed porch, but I believe
so that'd be-
it's the same
okay,
thing, so.
We're all set, I just want to make sure it was clear.
Okay,
It wasn't clear to me, and didn't want any problems going down the line.
no, good
So,
comment. Chris?
No questions.
I have no questions or comments, other than, I think we'll need our 2 conditions, because that's pretty tight down there,
Yeah,
too.
I have no questions.
Unless, question, can you get all the parking on site for the contract?
Yes,
for your?
we can drive
Okay, we
around
can
the
go with-
house and we park in the back.
Yeah, those
There's plenty of space.
We can go with the on-site parking condition then. Tim?
I have no questions.
Jamie?
No questions.
All right, seeing no one out in the public to make comments, I'll move to close the public hearing. Could I have wait a minute, yeah, okay. Can I have a second on that, please? Second by Chris Murphy, all in favor? All right, public hearing closed. I'll take a motion in the case, please.
Case number 2022-07, Edward Steiger has applied for a special permit to construct a portico/porch over the front entrance of his pre-existing non-conforming single-family dwelling. Is pursuant to the code of the town of Harwich, 32554, set forth in MGL, chapter 48, section 6, located at 7 Laurie Lane, map 22, parcel A3-4, in the RL zoning district. As proposed, the project will intensify one or more existing nonconformities. It will not create a new nonconformity, and it will not be substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood than the existing structures. All work shall be performed in accordance with the plans submitted with the application. The special permit is granted under the following conditions. There shall be no demolition.
No, we're gonna do-
I know, down here.
do
Okay,
that
during the
one, yeah.
project, construction vehicles shall be parked on the property and not on any public street or road. It is a condition of the approval that the violation of the terms and conditions of this special permit may be enforced as a violation of the Harwich zoning bylaw pursuant to MGL Chapter 48, Section 7, and the Harwich zoning bylaw, as these may be amended from time to time.
Could I have a second on that motion, please? Second from Mr. Armstrong. Any discussion by the board on the motion? All in favor? All right, special permit granted, 5-0. Good luck with the project.
Thank you very much, everybody. Have a great night.
You're welcome, you also.
Thanks for rushing down.
All right,
Take care.
yes, good. It avoids a carrying over. Because it sounds like, Shayla, we have another bunch of cases.
Yes, I have the legal notice. set up, so it goes off to you. It's not tonight. Not as tonight.
Actually, 9 o'clock is pretty good,
Yeah,
considering
considering,
the number of
That first
cases
one.
and the motel case. I knew that was gonna take a
Expecting 10.
while.
He did a
Especially
good
with the
job.
first case,
Oh,
it
he
would
always
take a
does a
half
good
hour,
job.
if you think about it. With, you know, 6
document
cases
for
in an
that.
hour and a half, not bad.
Oh, only 6 cases, that's not bad.
Dave, I won't be here, I mentioned that to you.
Okay, not that I remember, but that's
Thank you.
okay. Yeah, I didn't remember, but
No, it's okay.
that's fine. We have plenty of
Who's not gonna be
folks
here?
now.
I won't be here. Next 2 meetings.
All right.
Oh, 2, okay.
Yep, yep.
If,
So hopefully we don't get the,
no, it won't come in that soon.
okay.
For the newer members, if you could just let us know as soon as you know you can't make it, just so I'd like to have the full board at 5 if we can. We can go forward as long as we have 4 voting members, but as a matter of courtesy, we've always given an applicant the right to come back to have a full 5-person board, because the issue for them, even with a special permit, not just a variance, they need 4 positive votes. If there's 4 members and one of us doesn't vote in favor of it, they're out. The minutes from the December 29th, 2021 meeting, did anyone have any comments? Okay, I'll move to approve the minutes as submitted by Shayla. I need a second on that. Could I have a second, please? Any discussion on that? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, the minutes are approved as you submitted them, Shayla. Okay, I got a letter from the Adult Shared Living of Harwich, Inc., dated January 13, 2022, and I'll just read it quickly. It's not too long.
For whom again?
The Adult Shared Living of Harwich, Inc. Well, I don't know. It sounds like it's a brand-new organization, because down at the bottom it says minutes of first meeting of Board of Directors. So it says, it's to me as Chair of the Board of Appeals, Dear David Ryer, Adult Shared Living of Harwich, Inc., has applied for funding through the Harwich Community Preservation Committee, CPC, in order to build a modular ranch home with 4 bedrooms and 4.5 baths. We are seeking land on Oak Street to possibly donated by the Affordable Housing Trust. This home will be rented to 4 disabled men who can live independently, but who cannot afford a place on their own. The deed to the house will have a clause in the deed, although that's stricken out, it looks like, stricken out, specifying that the rent will remain in perpetuity at no more than 30% of a resident's income, whether from disability income or low-paying job. The CPC, Community Preservation Committee, has suggested us meeting with the Zoning Board of Appeals to discuss the necessary approvals and the steps we need to take. Please let us know your availability, and Jeff I can't say it, Locantore, our CEO, and I will arrange to meet with you. It's signed Janet L. Cardillo, Secretary, Board of Directors. I put together a letter back to her, and I said, "Dear Ms. Cardillo, this is in response to your letter dated January 13, 2022. Please be advised that the board cannot give legal advice to a potential applicant, nor can it give advisory opinions on a matter which may come before it. Accordingly, it would not be appropriate for me to meet with you." I actually should have said the board, but I said, I thought you wanted to just meet with me. I read it quickly. And I concluded, if you need legal advice, you may want to engage an attorney on behalf of your organization. And I just signed it as chairman. And the only reason I brought it up is this is the second request I've had in a month. The other one was from a member of the Board of Selectmen, I won't say who, but a friend wanted to know if they could do whatever in one of the districts, and I said, no, I'm the wrong person. They need to go hire a lawyer and get legal advice, because we don't give legal advice, and we certainly don't give advisory opinions, because it might come back to haunt us later on if we give an opinion that they could do it, and then we have a hearing, and it's challenged, and get into litigation, and open meeting law violations and every other thing. So I just wanted to let everybody know that really has been our position forever, but the new members might not have been here when it came up previously. So I sent you guys the thing on Chloe's Path. I'm still trying to get some training. I have been unsuccessful going to the town manager, so I'm now going to write to our committee liaison from the Board of Selectmen and see if I can get her to light a fire under our town manager to get town council to set up a training session. And I will send you folks, and I urge you to read it, some stuff on 40B. It's very detailed, but it's pretty good. And I'm going through it myself because it's been 5 or 6 years. Because what I'm going to do, if we do get the training, I'm going to ask town council to focus on only some very specific areas. I don't think we need a whole general thing on 40Bs. You can read that, but I want to know some specifics. Do we really need a consultant? I don't know. I don't know the capabilities on a project like this internally. I'd have to talk to the town manager, I guess, to find out, This is a 96-unit proposal, so it's really big.
Excuse me, David, there is money involved in that when they do, for
They have to
permits,
pay
right?
for it.
That we can
That's right.
hire.
Up to 10 or
consultants.
15,000.
Yeah.
The paper said 10, but what I read
Yeah.
today, I'm not sure how current it was, said 15. And I want to find out about peer reviews, when we would do it, how we would do that, how we get names of people to give us peer reviews if we need it. And the stuff I'll send around the next day or two, I forget, one of the housing departments put it together, and it's from 2017, so I assume it's still fairly current, but I don't know that. And I've also got a couple of court decisions, but they're not that current, but one of them, I haven't read either one yet, I just printed them down, but one of them gives guidance to the boards on what we can and cannot do. And so does this other document. And you can't just say what everybody wants, we need to knock the density down. That's not the way you can approach it. It would have to be based on health, safety, environmental, whatever. So I'll send all of that around and we'll see where we end up. Did I send the thing around about what the heck is the name of it? The clover leaf, I think it was?
Don't recall.
Did I send that? It was from Truro residents fighting cloverleaf apartment development. This is the one I mentioned a while back where it went on over a year, the 40B, because of the wastewater, and it's now in litigation. So
For this,
I did or did not send that. It was in the Cape Cod Times.
It's been a while, right?
No, just a couple days ago.
Send it again, send it again, I don't think we got it.
I didn't send it? Okay. All right, maybe I just sent it,
We've spoken about it in the past because of.
it was in Saturday's Cape Cod Times, so I can access that and I'll copy it and send that around too. Just a little blurb, but it was kind of interesting. And the attorney for the plaintiff suing the town and the developer, David Reed, who's appeared before us many times. I don't think he's ever appeared for a petitioner, always been in opposition, but he's an excellent lawyer and does a very, very thorough job, researches the law, and glad I'm not on the zoning board on this one, because I think he is a worthy opponent. But that was kind of interesting. I didn't realize that particular one, after all that time, had gone to litigation.
It was over wastewater.
What's that?
It was over the wastewater.
What's one of their main objections?
Yeah.
I mean, wastewater is a problem for all Cape Cod.
Right, but they've actually had to put in a modular unit, a actual unit for the whole division.
Yeah.
Subdivision, and the people that are fighting it say it's unproven.
Yeah.
It's experimental or something like that.
And this one wasn't that big. It was for 39 units.
Did
And
the
the one on
people-
Chloe's Path, they're talking about 96, so this one went on over a year.
Waste treatment, things like that are common, even if places don't have septic system, even if you just overburden the sewer system, they require that in many cases. So those things are,
There's only
I was
like,
surprised to hear that as the opposition, but.
I agree.
On a project that big, it's not, I didn't realize
I'm
they
sure
had
people
done
don't
it.
want it.
Right, right.
Oh, yeah, I'm not surprised they fought it, I'm
bottom
surprised
line.
that has
Yeah.
any legs.
And if this one goes forward and the board approves it, I would be willing to bet it'll go to litigation with 96 units. When they had the proposal for the local initiative, the so-called friendly 40B, there were a lot of neighbors came out in opposition already. And I drove down there the other day just to drive in that little street, and I mean, there's no neighbors around. The only thing you can see from back there is the back of the police and fire station there. But down below, there are wetlands and a pond or lake, whatever it is, so I'm
That's
sure
grassy-
wastewater
That's grassy pond back
will be an issue. So we'll see. But it sounds like they're taking the steps to get the petition in front of us. So we'll see. One of the things one of the reasons I want the training, to get our town council down here, is to talk about getting the overall consultant, because you really are supposed to do that, I think, right away, either before the petition is filed or right away after it's filed. I've got to nail down the date.
I think the last time we had the attorney from Boston that represents the town of Harwich, and I've forgotten her name. She sat right out in front here, and we had some questions, and she responded.
She came down, did she come, not for the 40B, not our attorney. We've never had town council on a
No,
40B.
this is a woman from Boston. She represents the town, she has a contract with her office has a contract with the town.
I don't,
I thought that's what I recall.
well, the last one, we had Attorney Singer.
Yeah.
And we had Flores, I don't remember her first, something hyphen Flores.
Sarah Tirano Flores.
And we had a third lawyer. There were three of them, maybe Attorney Reed.
Yeah.
Yeah, he definitely was around for that.
There were three lawyers involved, or maybe it was Attorney Ford from, is he from Chatham or Ho? I don't remember now.
guy with the golf course?
But anyway, we had three lawyers involved, but we did not have town council
Yeah,
because that was
yes.
Yeah, that's what I
Yes,
thought.
fairly
yes,
easy.
Always,
Yep.
yeah.
So does anyone have anything else? That's all I have.
Oh, sorry. I just had a question. Is the selectmen putting together a committee currently made up of other boards, all the boards, and I can't remember, to review, is it a charter question, or have you heard anything about? Okay,
I've not heard anything about that, no.
no, okay.
I've got a go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, thank you.
Mine's off topic.
Oh, okay. You know, going through a list of cases, I saw still no still listing a 43 or 44 Hiawatha, still shows waiting for review. Just an old, back from September, just didn't know what, I forget what happened with that particular property, but it's, you pull up the zoning things, you look down, there's a 44 Hiawatha is still awaiting review as of September 23rd.
Where did you see that?
I don't know.
Yeah,
Send me an email tomorrow.
That was
I'll
on
do
Excel,
some
wasn't it?
Was that in Acela?
yeah, I just did, you know.
You mean on the new cases?
Right, just,
Oh.
all right, so, just throwing that out, just didn't, know if it something hadn't been updated and it's closed and we. didn't
Send me an
update it.
email tomorrow and I'll
I will.
review that.
Yeah, we might have given them a continuance or withdrawal and they never came back. I don't
Yeah, I just-
remember, but,
The other thing is, just want you guys to know, I spoke to the Dave Armstrong today, Anderson, I'm sorry, apologize, regarding a sale lot. I called him as an individual. When I went down there, I looked up that hill, saw what was going on, I was just astounded even at what could be a safety issue for kids that could be wandering that backyard off of Braddock. I mean, did you all take note of what happened when they?
I actually talked to the fellow who was putting in the forms. His company was putting the forms, and they were putting the concrete forms at the bottom. He was
Right.
the one that built that wall
Yeah.
by the 6x4s, by whatever the blazes they were. He says that, and I had asked that question as well, because that hill, he said they took out 700 yards of fill out of that. And that wall that you're referring to of sand has been collapsing. And that's why I commented with regard to the lady's property. The same thing is happening on the other side of the garage. But anyway, the bottom line is this. He told me that whomever is actually engineering the project has not, they're waiting for the plan to come up. He doesn't do anything with this. He's waiting for the plan to come up as to your question. What's going to go in there and how is it going to be accomplished?
Well, according to Dave, when the excavator came in and dug the foundation, those neighbors, the back lot neighbors there, the abutters, they've lost 4 to 7 feet of their property collapsed into the site.
Yep.
It just gave way. And now there's only and you're looking at about 15 feet.
At least.
And there's a rinky-dink snow fence, and then some yellow tape going the other side of it as well. And that's it as far as to,
Now, this weekend ought to be a very interesting look at that place later on.
well, Dave told me they're down there every storm, see what's going on. Now, what's of interest, because I said, first of all, I gave him a call because, if some kid ever fell off from that thing, I feel like I never said anything to anybody. It's dangerous. And it turns out that the neighbors back there on Braddock didn't want anything put in more for better security. But, that telephone pole that used to be at 24 Braddock, when they dug that pole fell. When the power company got down there, they lost the pole, it collapsed into the hole.
not our issue.
I know, but.
It's up to the property owners, the abutters, they
But
can
it-
get
it's
lawyers
It's
and,
definitely a safety issue, which I brought up to the building inspector today, and they said they're trying to address it. But going forward, whenever there's that's so close to the line, the issue there was, you got a lot line that's very close, we had a 5 feet change, and nobody addressed how to properly shore that property up when the excavator went in there. It's just very dangerous.
but again, that's not under our purview.
I know it isn't.
The housing, so.
Right, that's,
But I want you guys to know that I did speak to the building inspector today, saying raising my concern about safety. If this had been the summertime, I think the town would have to get involved with it to do something. But there's not much activity down there now.
anything else?
I have completely off topic. Does anyone know how many zones you can have for irrigation in our town?
Wait, more volume.
How many zones for irrigation you can have in our town? Just I didn't know if anyone knew.
You mean on your own?
Yeah.
For a sprinkler system?
Yeah. Is there like, I've heard there's like a max of 6. I didn't know if
No,
that
I
was
have
true
8.
or not. It's 8?
I have 8.
Okay.
I don't,
Because I got a quote and it was 8, and I was like, I thought I could only have 6. So I was like, I'm not going to put it in and then be the guy that's not following the rules, you know what I mean?
I wasn't aware of any limit. I don't know.
Yeah.
No.
I don't
Okay.
see why the town would care.
I don't know. My neighbor told me, he's like, I think it's 6. And I was like, I don't know.
You have one zone, you move it around whenever
Now,
you
those
need
of us that are
That's what
gonna
I
be on
have too.
sewer,
to. 7 are rather-
Yeah, I got quoted for
I
8,
got
and I was
one
like,
zone with a long hose.
It's in,
Gotta be a lot more zones.
all right, I will move to adjourn our meeting at 9:19 PM.
Second.
Second by Jamie Armstrong, all in favor? Aye. We're adjourned. Okay, Jamie.